Welcome to the Thornton Review, the show designed with you in mind. If it's important to you, it's important to us. Commander Jon Fay was born and raised in Texas. He joined the Navy in 1996 just out of high school and received his bachelor's degree in economics from the U.S. Naval Academy and his master's degree in business administration from Georgetown University. Jon served more than 24 years as a Naval Flight Officer. During his career, he logged over 3,200 flight hours and 168 carrier-arrested landings during Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Jon also served as a Defense Legislative Fellow on Capitol Hill and the U.S. House of Representatives and as a Congressional Advisor to 4 Secretaries of Defense. He later went on to serve as Executive Officer of the Blue Angels during the 2022-2023 show season. Since retiring from the Navy, Jon now serves as Asset Management Director at Airline MRO Parts. Jon serves as a member of the Board of Directors for Veterans Florida and the Blue Angels Association and is a former advisory board member for the USO Florida. He is also a current candidate for the Florida House of Representatives District 2. Outside of work, Jon enjoys spending time with his wife and children. Hi, I'm Pueschel Schneier, Executive Producer and Manager of the Thornton Review. Thank you for tuning in. On today's show, we have retired Naval Commander Jon Fay. He is a candidate for Florida State House District 2. So Jon, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for carving time out of your busy schedule to come and sit down and have a conversation with me. Will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Pueschel. It's an honor to be here on the Thornton Review. Thank you for having me. My name is Jon Fay. I'm a candidate for House District 2 here in Pensacola. I'm a retired Naval Flight Officer. My wife and I had the opportunity to live in Pensacola on 3 different occasions, and this one our last, and we just decided to call Pensacola home. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas, where I grew up. Went to the Naval Academy and was just privileged to do 24 years serving in the United States Navy. Just enjoyed every minute of it. Now I'm retired and serve as an executive in aviation finance, working for a company that provides procurement of parts for aircraft that undergo overhaul, largely commercial aircraft and regional airlines. Mm-hmm. So we do that, making airlines safer to fly, and I get to go out and find some investments and hopefully help our company out.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that. That seems like a very important job to keep the airlines and the airplanes safe for flying.
Yeah, it is. Aircraft are really picky. They require 100% of the parts to be installed. So we work pretty hard to make sure that we're doing it right. Obviously, a lot of regulation and procedures that we follow, but it's been an incredible experience so far, and I'm enjoying it.
I'm glad they're picky.
Me too.
So thank you for that. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll begin our discussion with Jon Fay, candidate for Florida State House District 2.
Hi, I'm Jon Fay. I'm a retired Navy commander, former Blue Angels executive officer, business leader, husband, father, and conservative Republican running for the Florida House of Representatives. After assignments in the cradle of naval aviation on 3 separate occasions throughout our Navy career, my family and I are proud to call Pensacola home. I served our country for over 2 decades, and I still believe service matters. Not as a politician, but as a citizen who believes Florida's best days are ahead. I'll fight to protect our freedoms, support law enforcement and first responders, defend our military community and veterans, lower costs for families, and keep government accountable to the people. I believe leadership matters, character matters, and service still matters. I'd be honored to earn your support. I'm Jon Fay, candidate for Florida House District 2, and I'm glad to be here.
There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to begin our discussion with Jon Fay, candidate for State House District 2. So Jon, thanks for coming on the show. It seems like you've had an extremely successful career in the Navy, and your flight record is phenomenal. I read about your flight record and everything, and you're very, very qualified to do pretty much any type of position in like the political arena. What was your spark that made you decide that you wanted to run for State House?
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate your kind words. I will say, I'll kind of caveat that with the career that I had wasn't always what I expected or what I sought out, but I think it was the career that I needed. God was good and faithful to put me in the right place, even if it wasn't the place that I thought I needed to be at that time. Mm-hmm. So God's timing tends to be pretty perfect on things, and I'm really appreciative of it. So just had a career where I was able to kind of put my head down and with the support of my family, to be able to just go and do the work, trust the process, and I'm happy to say that I think it all worked out in the end. I really feel blessed to have had to end up where we did. Mm-hmm. So to that end, I got to follow some great leaders, some great mentors, and learn throughout over the course of a 24-year Navy career. And I'm happy to say too, even in the civilian sector, I'm following some great leaders and still learning. You never stop learning. Picked up on that, accountability, integrity, all those things that from day one at the Naval Academy, was able to carry that through a career and looking to do that as well now in the civilian sector and potentially in public service. So I think that those things matter. There's definitely a return on character, and I'd like to see that through as an elected official.
So you retired from the Navy and you got a job at MRO Parts.
Yes, ma'am.
And that seems like a very important job. Are you still working at that position?
I did. I started at Airline MRO Parts. We go by AMP. It's a little easier to say, but MRO is just maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Okay. So it's MROs are like ST Engineering here in Pensacola. Okay. They take aircraft, whether they're commercial aircraft, whether they're cargo aircraft. At some other facilities, you may have regional and even business jets that get worked on. It's just like going and getting an oil change, getting your tires changed, or maybe some spark plugs changed out. That's effectively what they're doing at different levels. So our company provides automated services for all the material that's provided to those MROs so that they can do it more efficiently with cost savings, and ultimately bring in more aircraft and have a quicker turnaround, which is ultimately best for the industry as well. So our company does that. My business segment that I run, I've got a team, and we look for investments on the open market. And we'll look for opportunities where we can buy material that will align with our customers' usage so that we can provide it readily and at the right cost.
Sounds like you're pretty busy with that.
It's busy, but it's good.
So as far as like civic engagement, what is your biggest accomplishment in District 2?
So I think in District 2, where we've lived, our kids go to school, where we serve. I work there, and I worked there previously in the Navy. I served as the executive officer with the Blue Angels, and I think that was probably the first time to really plug into the community more at whole. I mentioned, we'd been here 3 different occasions. First as a flight school student, coming through the cradle of naval aviation, right, as all naval aviators do. As a naval flight officer, I actually did all my training here, and I got winged here. And then had the opportunity, we came back and I got to serve as a flight instructor here. And so that was, training the next generation of naval flight officers. So working hand in hand with the squadron, both the active duty, which was Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force, as well as DoD civilians that were our support pilots. So I got to do that. But I'd say in the last couple years, as the executive officer, the Blue Angels are kind of like the hometown team.
Right, of course. And that's exciting. That's huge.
It was really cool. Yeah, so as executive officer, I got to be I always tell people it's like being the president to the CEO. The CEO is the commanding officer, the number one jet, the flight leader. And so we affectionately refer to the flight leader as the boss. So the boss has a lot on the boss's plate in commanding the squadron. My role was to run the squadron. So use that kind of president CEO type analogy. So I got to kind of shut the door and make sure that we were doing all the functions that ensured efficient administration of policies, taking care of people, and all the programs of 32 show sites over the course of a season, nearly 300 days on the road.
So were you kind of like in the office, in the department, and in the classroom, instructing these guys and going over everything? Did you ever actually fly a Blue Angels jet yourself?
I had the best perk ever because I got to fly in the jet.
Okay, so you were a passenger in the jet.
I got to be in the jet, and that was because we all have a role associated with the flight demonstration.
Okay.
And ground duty, if you will. So I was at ComCart. That's the communications cart where we actually speak to the aircraft to keep them safe. We manage the airspace and make sure all the maneuvers are conducted safely. So we'll have certain safety checks, things like that. Plus we also grade the demo because a lot of people don't realize that the demo is about 42 minutes long and our debrief is twice as long. And we're scrutinizing every detail of that. And part of that detail is provided through the feedback on the ground that we as the graders will observe. Now, within that, I did, to kind of go back on the question of service to the district, I got to work with a lot of local officials. We're gone quite a bit, and so that didn't necessarily entail direct engagement. That's usually more like a base CO, base commanding officer, those types of things. But I had a really great opportunity to go and work where we did a lot of volunteer activities out in town, whether that was with the chamber or other officials, to be able to come out and do speaking engagements or publicity engagements with the community. So got to do quite a bit of that, and then being able to kind of keep the public apprised on Blue Angel events, like every Sunday the Blue Angels do the beach buzz, and so I'd work with several different organizations to be able to kind of keep them posted so that they are aware of timing, because we'd have storms and things like that would pop up, so just keeping them in the know. So I got to develop a lot of really good relationships with the people in the town, and as much as it's awesome to work and live in the place that people come and visit, it's also the people that make the place pretty beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who come to Pensacola just for Blue Angels weekend.
Right.
Tourists, they come here for it, and it's like the biggest weekend. 4th of July and Blue Angels are
like $30 million impact. I think was the latest estimate. So yeah, it's a great thing, and I think it's right for us to make sure that we're constantly making sure that we keep the Blue Angels in place, so that there's never any sort of discussion of moving them elsewhere. This is their home.
I know it is, definitely, and locals get their own Blue Angels show when they're practicing, because I can see them from the studio office flying around, and then I spend some time over like in the Navy Point area, and if I'm out in the backyard or if I hear them, I'll run out and watch and get my own private show. It is amazing. One time I was on the beach, and I was in a very big house with a very big window facing east, and I could see the jets coming straight over that house. It was just amazing. It was so cool.
I still find myself just
like
sometimes.
My own private little show, but yeah.
Right.
But yeah, no, you never are not in awe of watching them. And it's just like, your jaw's dropped the entire time. And
that's honestly the intent of it. The whole mission of the Blue Angels is to inspire. And there's a much more detailed mission statement. But at the end of the day, every member of that team shows up to work because they want to inspire the next generation, or they want to inspire the best in all of us as Americans, whether that's service to country or just the ideal of being a better citizen and loving our country more. I think anyone can attest that if they've gone to a show and seen the narrator speak, combined with the music and the performance and just the awe-inspiring maneuvers that they perform and the precision of it all, it leaves you with you get the chills on your in your neck, and it certainly from day one that I remember seeing them, it's just inspired me to be better.
So what, in your opinion, or in people's opinion, is the biggest issue in District 2 right now?
I think the biggest issue in District 2, and it kind of transcends across the entire state really, is affordability. Whether that's affordability of homes and just the cost of living here. We've seen Florida as a standard bearer, right? The free state of Florida. I think Governor DeSantis has done an incredible job here, and we've really gotten a lot of great positive feedback to where people want to live here, people want to do business here, but with that also comes additional costs. And so how we manage that, whether that's through the rising cost of homes, of insurance, all those things are important. And I think it's great that as a state we're focusing on those reforms. in previous years we've had insurance reforms focused on tort reforms that make the market more competitive for providers and ultimately lower those costs. I think we're seeing those costs come down certainly in automobile insurance. We would love to see home insurance pricing and
Thank you.
I'd love to see that come down.
Property tax.
Someone who pays that bill. We pay that bill here. It's still too much, and we've got to find ways to be even more competitive. Certainly open to anything that the free market, capitalistic approach that we can do to drive down those prices and limit red tape and bureaucracy. But I think that's one of the biggest issues. Certainly not the only issue. We've got many others that factor into it. But I think if you had to nail it down to one specific thing, I think affordability is a chief concern.
I think waste, fraud, and abuse has to do with affordability and property taxes, because I think there's just a lot of waste going on. And the fraud and abuse, people might be breaking the law and committing fraud and abusing certain programs. I'm not saying I want to go after those people, but I want to say I want to stop them from doing it.
Right.
And prevent them and really take a Doge approach and look at every single budget. You have to start on a local level, school board, county commission, city council, whatever other boards we have, ECUA. Look at the boards, look at the budgets, and look at the programs going on. Look at how those programs are being run, and see where the waste is, and actually not just point it out, not just discover it, but eliminate it.
Absolutely. I think in the affordability conversation, and obviously lots of things happen at the state level, right? As we talk with tax reforms and various things like that. But I agree with you 100%. The biggest thing that we can do is look at how are we spending that money. Taking a microscope to it, the Doge approach. I think is great. The fact that we're looking at how our money is being spent, because at the end of the day, government's supposed to be accountable to the people, and we need to be transparent with it. We need to make sure that we're, being, proper stewards of government funds and taxable dollars.
Right.
So I think that's probably at the heart of the discussion. Whether there's, multiple different avenues approach with where the state's going for property tax reform, for example. But at the end of the day, it's how are we spending our money both locally at the state level and heck even federally.
Yeah, I agree, and it starts local. If every municipality would just look at their local budgets and eliminate the waste, then it would just go, it would skyrocket.
Yeah, and doesn't every homeowner do that? Doesn't, every person that's paying their bills, you'll always look at where am I spending my money rather than just constantly looking at additional revenues as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a good analogy.
So my dad and I compare what we spend our money on now as opposed to what we were spending on the money in the 80s when I was growing up. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cable TV. So those were big, household budget items and expenses that we didn't even have. And so, you could live a lot differently without that stuff. I mean, I guess your quality of life may have been different, but we didn't even know. We had no idea. But there's so many things that we're spending money on now that we weren't spending money on then.
Right. How did we get by?
I know. How did we?
Sometimes.
How are we getting by now is the question, because we're spending so much money.
I don't know if it always applies to to funding, but you can look at it a lot of times with manpower or something like that. Sometimes your organization will fit the size that you provide to it. If you have a leaner approach in terms of hiring of individuals, you'll make it work. And I think that there's it doesn't fit everywhere, but there's kind of a commonsensical approach that you can take to that. If sometimes you just have to look at, hey, this is a ceiling or a threshold that we have to set, and we have to stay within those confines.
So you have military experience and business experience to bring to the table. Can you tell us a little more about your business experience? Like how would you run the business? How would you compare running your position to running a business?
Sure. And actually, on the business side, I'm a small business owner as well. My wife and I started a consulting business right after retiring from the Navy. And that's given us a lot of insight and perspective into what it takes, the risk that our business owners have, just the ability of looking at scrutinizing your finances. Where am I spending my money? Is it worth it? Is the return on investment there? We have to think of it that way because it matters, because every dollar matters when you're a small business owner. So we're getting a little bit of that perspective. I love it because as someone who came from a military background with 24 years of service, the opportunity to kind of iterate a little faster. And so I'm getting that experience, learning as I go, and trying to run through that cycle, to be able to, compete with my peers and just be a better, businessman. Within our company, running a business segment, we're an international business, and so we're doing business all over the world. I've got transactions in the Middle East, in Europe, in Latin America, in North America, locally. We're all over the place with it, and it forces you to be able to work with all sorts of different cultures and people of just different degrees of people. And so I'm enjoying that. But at the end of the day, leadership, it's critical to be able to communicate. It's critical to be able to set a vision. And I think to collaborate. I joke all the time that I don't have a whole lot of skills in life. They're, not the most talented person.
I don't believe you at all.
Well, thank you. But I think that even if you consider yourself, average at a lot of different things, I've had a strength in being able to surround myself with great teams and great teammates, and to try and be able to pull out the best in them. And that's something that I feel as a potential state legislator, the ability to collaborate and build meaningful relationships across the aisle within the state legislature, as well as both at local levels and federal levels as well, because that's how these issues get solved, right? I never once think that I have all the answers, but I do believe that our voters, our constituency, and several other of our elected officials do, and I'd love to work with them.
Well, I'm glad that you see affordability as a big issue. So, what is your platform like? How can you expand on how you're going to solve the affordability problem?
Sure.
Just explain your platform.
Yeah. So my platform was really kind of informed by our experience here in transitioning out of the military as a military retiree, and knowing that we were going to stay in Pensacola. I didn't get out and just have a ton of jobs looking me in the face. I had to go work and apply and find out what's out there. And it's one thing, I love this community, and I would love to see economic development occur here to where we have a living wage for all of our residents, as well as opportunities for mid-level executives and beyond. I think it's great to have companies that want to do business here, that want to base themselves out here. Navy Federal with the big campus here. I think that was a big win. We've got Field International, within the aviation industry, that is now making their U.S. home. They're a UK-based company. They're making their home here in Pensacola, and our economic development alliances and Florida's Great Northwest.
Who's moving? I'm sorry.
Field International. So they do.
Are they going to provide jobs?
They will. I don't know the exact number of jobs offhand, but they're bringing their U.S. based headquarters here. What they do is they provide support equipment for aircraft.
Okay.
So to be able to help, install an engine, they require certain types of lifts and slings. They build that type of machinery and sell that to all the different airlines and providers throughout the world.
Is that going to be at the airport?
It's going to be, I want to say, effectively north of downtown Pensacola, kind of in basically Brent area, somewhere in that general vicinity. I'm not. I don't recall the exact press release, but they about 4 or 5 months ago they had a big press release that the EDA had worked to get that solidified.
Okay,
and so
interesting.
they're doing some good stuff here. So I think more opportunities like that, because we have a tremendous amount of talent that comes out of Naval Air Station Pensacola.
Absolutely.
We always talk about the cradle of naval aviation. Everyone always thinks, well, that's pilots. But I'll tell you, it's a lot more than that. It's pilots. It's also a lot of the support personnel that go with it. Naval Flight Officers get trained here, as well as all of our maintainers. Our maintainers, we've got trade schools basically on the base there. That means that we have very senior instructors that are close to a retirement point or a separation point and come out and could immediately plug into that and bring years and years of experience into our local economy, as well as the youth that will come through and maybe have a favorable impression of Pensacola as we did coming through as flight school students many years ago.
My best friend growing up, her father retired from the Navy here at NAS, and he got a civilian job working on NAS, and he was like the head mechanic. I forgot the name of the department that he was working in, but he was like the lead mechanic. I don't know if that was his title, but for the aircraft.
Right. Yeah,
So he retired from the Navy, and then he got a job still working on the base for another 20 years doing the mechanic work that he did in the Navy.
It's a schoolhouse, and so they're doing the initial training again, that cradle type mentality to be able to take it out to the fleet. That's where they're doing it. So you have literally hundreds of thousands of hours of experience there, a repository of that. And if Pensacola could extract just a little bit of that, I think we'd better off for it. Plus these are people that have great character and integrity and service-led type embodiment, so I think that would be great for Pensacola to be able to retain more of that talent.
Right.
Now,
Right.
I'd say from a platform standpoint, I look at it as affordability. So that means driving down costs, helping our families, to be able to afford their home here, to be able to live here, and make it a great community, continue to make it a great community. Availability is availability of jobs, but it's also the education systems to support it, and that means making sure that parents have choices that they can make for their students, that they're involved, and that we have quality education systems and we're paying our teachers appropriately, that we have the administrative support to be able to make sure that our education is providing sufficient K through 12 education, but also trade schools and universities. We've got a lot of good things going on here with Pensacola State College, UWF, and the jump to Division I. It's just, we've got, the future's looking bright for Pensacola. I do think that trade schools have been a little bit undersold, and in recent years we're seeing a little bit more of a rebirth there. The aviation industry is ripe for the need for trades, but you have that so much more beyond it with HVAC and automobiles and even nursing that some of our local trade schools provide. I think it's a great off-ramp for someone who may not enjoy the typical traditional college or university model.
And the public school system is trying to streamline and get students interested in what they're good at with those different programs.
Right. I think with STEAM and making sure that we're promoting science and technology, because obviously there's a lot of opportunity in those futures. Medical certainly, but in other skill sets too. I think you're going to find if you incentivize a student to find something that they enjoy, they're going to do better at it just naturally, right? If you enjoy what you're doing, then you're probably going to perform and work harder, at it.
Well, I want to ask you what the voters think are the biggest issues and what you've heard, but we're going to take a commercial break first. And I want to remind our viewers that the Thornton Review is a civic engagement show with a purpose to spread awareness by interviewing local elected officials, candidates, and professional leaders. This is information you won't get anywhere else. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Jon Fay, candidate for Florida State House District 2.
Hi, I'm Jon Fay. I'm a retired Navy commander, former Blue Angels executive officer, business leader, husband, father, and conservative Republican running for the Florida House of Representatives. After assignments in the cradle of naval aviation on 3 separate occasions throughout our Navy career, my family and I are proud to call Pensacola home. I served our country for over 2 decades, and I still believe service matters. Not as a politician, but as a citizen who believes Florida's best days are ahead. I'll fight to protect our freedoms, support law enforcement and first responders, defend our military community and veterans, lower costs for families, and keep government accountable to the people. I believe leadership matters, character matters, and service still matters. I'd be honored to earn your support. I'm Jon Fay, candidate for Florida House District 2, and I'm glad to be here.
If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button right now. Be sure to like the video and hit the notification bell so you never miss a great guest. We provide this content as a public service, and it helps our channel when you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You can watch us at our YouTube channel, The Thornton Review, at The Thornton Review 7810, our website, thethorntonreview.com. On Vimeo, please follow The Thornton Review. Please like our Facebook page, The Thornton Review Show, on TV, WBQP Channel 12, and WBQP on Roku and Fire Stick.
Military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020.
Thank you for tuning in. We're going to continue our discussion with Jon Fay, as a candidate for Florida State House District 2. So what are the voters saying, and what type of leadership are you going to show the voters based on what they're saying and what they want?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to kind of get out over the course of the last year. I filed a little over a year ago, and really, as the calendar year rolled around, really things have ramped up more. We've spent a lot of time within our campaign of door knocking, walking various neighborhoods throughout House District 2 to get a feel for what's important, going to various community events where people have a voice and are voicing, concerns. I'd say it is a continuation of the affordability piece. There's the desire for accountability in government and transparency in government, bringing that back to the people. And this is especially important, I think, because with the House of Representatives, it's every 2 years you're up for election. You are the voice of the people. You're supposed to be the representative of the people. It's the people's house. So you have to be in tune with your voters. Again, what we're saying is that, we need to make sure that our dollars count, both with what is, with taxes, with our wages, and with how we're preparing folks to go out and be able to make a living wage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you feel like it's important to be in tune with the voters and to be engaging with them and to know what is important to them, and to actually go to Tallahassee and work and fight for what is important to the voters.
Yeah, I think all politics is local, right? So you have to be able to capture what's important to the local voters, to your constituency, and that comes with direct engagement. I've actually enjoyed the door knocking, going door to door. I love relationships. I just love building relationships. So the opportunity to meet with someone. Of course, sometimes people don't necessarily want to come to their door and have a conversation, and I respect that as well. But when I've been blessed with that opportunity to kind of talk to someone and they feel free to share their opinions, I've learned a lot, because one, it forces me to respond with my thoughts in terms of how I would respond as an elected official, but also it's always good to get additional points of view. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't have every answer, but I know collectively we can come up with the right answer that's right for our community. So it's actually pretty fun to kind of go and meet folks and kind of hear what's on their mind. And again, everyone's just looking to try and make sure that Pensacola is the place that the great little community that we have. We got to preserve and promote and protect that.
Conserve it. Pensacola is America's first settlement. It was here before St. Augustine. Mm-hmm. St. Augustine takes the credit because we had a hurricane that wiped us away. Yeah. But we need to conserve and preserve what makes Pensacola a great historical district. The entirety of Pensacola, the architecture, just the history, just everything about
it. Absolutely. And kind of like our conversation earlier that we had too, it is the oldest settlement, but we don't have to reflect that. Sometimes that takes a little bit of infrastructure development as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think we need smart decisions to be able to provide for that infrastructure. We have a lot of infrastructure needs just with the weather that we receive here. You know, obviously the risk of storms and all. That takes, again, promoting and protecting that. We've got to have elected officials that are making sure that they're being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar to make sure that we're making infrastructure that's strong and resilient.
Yeah, and if you notice, if you look around Pensacola, we don't have skyscrapers, we don't have high-rise anything. And it's like Washington, D.C., the highest thing is the Washington Monument, and there's they have a different reason.
Right.
But I think ours is because of the
Ours is
weather.
for the Blue Angel flyover.
There you go. Ours is because of hurricanes. You can't have a skyscraper in the middle of a hurricane. That would be very smart.
Yeah, and I think we got to be fine with that, right? I mean, it's
just an observation.
I love the idea of a big little city or little big town or however you want to describe it, but it's just Pensacola has just it has a feel to it, has character to it, and those things are all worth make it what it is, and that's why it's so special to us.
Yeah, and I just think it's very important to conserve the historic infrastructure, the historic integrity of what makes America a great city. And a lot of it is the architecture. And I think of, restoring and preserving the architecture, the homes, the houses. In my opinion, like if I could make something happen, I would introduce legislation to require houses over a certain age in the city of Pensacola to be maintained. And if the owners can't do it, something has to be done so that they're not demolished. Like the Victorians over like in Old East Hill.
North Hill, right.
Well, North Hill has its...
the historic district.
Yeah, and I used to be the secretary of that board, and they are very serious about conserving and preserving the architecture, but the city of Pensacola needs it, the entire city.
Yeah. I don't, that's interesting because I don't know the nuances of what goes into the historic districts and the different, like the historic trust and all. But conceptually, I agree with that. Like Pensacola has a character. And one of the things that even though I love to say that I've, the past 20 years, that 4 years of seeing Pensacola grow and change. Actually, 26 years. Wow, where's the time gone?
I know.
26 years of seeing Pensacola beyond where my family would come on vacation early on. I love the fact that it still maintained that character and all the smart developments that went into downtown. They've still very well preserved the architecture, the culture, the things that make it
uniquely
uniquely
I would like to
Pensacola.
See that expanded though, in the areas that don't have that protection.
Sure.
Because the North Hill Preservation Association has that protection. The historic downtown Pensacola has that protection. I love it. I'm glad they do. That's a small area. But East Hill, Old East Hill, and the rest of downtown Pensacola that isn't in that historic district should have that protection where homeowners are required to not have termites, not have leaking roofs, not have mold in their house, to keep it up and conserve those historic homes.
Yeah,
I just think it should be expanded.
Sure. I think that you'd have to have just a smart balance between the rights as a property owner, managed with another level of kind of government telling you how, or some sort of telling the citizenry how to respond. But I think it's a noble idea. I would love the concept of people being able to take pride in something, especially like a historic home that has so much heritage. I think that that's a noble and worthwhile goal to have. How we could make it do, there just would be some details of how to make that work.
And here I'm a person who wants less government.
I understand.
But just conserving what makes Pensacola a great city, and the architecture is part of it. We've got to conserve the architecture even though it's privately owned.
Yeah, maybe the magic in that would be just finding the incentives and the ways that you could ensure that homeowners are incentivized in care. Care enough to do that, and have the resources.
Property tax to put it back into those homes in that district. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways. You and I can talk off the record and figure something out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, again, it's part of the learning process.
So, what's the very first thing you're going to do when you're elected?
So,
besides go out and party?
well, not that. I think I might, get back to work, but I think what's important, it wouldn't be just the first, but it would be the enduring thing, is making sure that there's accountability and trust in public office, and that public office, it's public service and not politics as usual. I'm not running, to be a politician. I'm running because I feel, the sense of duty and honor in that. And I think it's Benjamin Franklin had the saying of higher office should be neither sought nor refused. And I love that concept. I love the ideals that our founding fathers set in terms of service. You serve, and then you retreat back into society as a citizen. Of course, you're a citizen throughout, but I would like to make sure that my service is characteristic of that. But in terms of actual hard, impacts, I want to be a good wingman. I want to be a good teammate within the state legislature. The ability to work well with all your class that comes in as a group of new members in the House of Representatives, to be able to work together with the existing state representatives, to work with the senators and all the varying entities that you have to deal with in Tallahassee, as well as, of course, back home in Pensacola, whether that's our leadership here and the various other electeds. As well as being accountable and responsible to the constituents, and that's not just constituents that voted for you, but constituents that live there, because we live here, and I mean that's in our best interest. At the end of the day, we want a place that our kids want to come back to, and that we can all flourish, and that it's again that big little town of where people wave at each other and they're courteous and they're nice and it's picked up and it's clean and you can be successful, and maybe just maybe all of our students and all of our citizens are just slightly above average, in everything that we do. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that checks and balances, you want to appease your voters. You want your voters to get what they need and what they want, what they elected you for. But you also have to deal with the checks and balances in Tallahassee. So it's kind of, sometimes it's not, sometimes you're fighting against the team to get what you need for the district.
Yeah,
so you have to hold your values above working with somebody who might want something different.
Yeah.
Or a team that might want something.
I've always just looked at decisions are always kind of just it's a framing, it's a mindset, right? And at the end of the day, as a legislator, you have to look at everything under the lens of is it constitutional? Is it what your constituents want? What's good for your district? And is it in line with your faith? And as someone as a Christian, I have to make sure that I'm holding a line that I believe in as a believer. And that's probably been one of the biggest learning curves in stepping into this kind of arena is, in military service and all, you don't really get into a lot of that, right? You're not going to be, people aren't going to judge you based on, different viewpoints and all. As a matter of fact, you really don't express that in an environment like that, right?
Because you're doing the job that you're trained to do.
Right. And so this is the first time to actually have to kind of say, well, this is what I stand for. This is what my family and I are going to stand for. And this is how we're going to put ourselves out there. Now, I do think you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that that's an important thing that we need to instill in politics nowadays. But I think that that's important, to be able to hold and be a person of your word, I've always talked, in terms of, my no's will be no's and my yeses will be yeses, and everything else I'm going to, be informed on, and I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be open with you. If I disagree, I'll tell you. That's where trust is eroded, is when people feel that they've been lied to or misled.
So what are your goals for District 2? After 2 years, and then of course you'll probably want to continue into 4 years. What are your goals in 4 years?
Yeah, so immediate goal: get elected. Get elected if I'm the right person. If I'm the right person for the district, I want to make sure that I'm the right person to lead and take us where we need to go. Now, within that, what for the district? I'd like to ensure that we see affordable reform, to keep building on those wins of driving down costs of home ownership, driving down costs in insurance, and just the overall cost of living, and also to be able to achieve economic growth and wins for our community. And then non-negotiable, taking care of our military and our veterans community and their families, as well as our law enforcement and first responders. It's crazy to me that we've had, I've grown up as a military service member of everyone always saying thank you for your service, and being very appreciative of that. My father's generation in Vietnam, they didn't have that. We've had that in the global war on terrorism and beyond. But you look at it, and even just recent years, our law enforcement hasn't had that. Our first responders have not had that, and that's mind-boggling to me, because they deserve every bit of our gratitude and our support. And so I want to make sure that at the state level that's just not negotiable and never goes away.
So your dad was in Vietnam?
My dad was in the Texas National Guard during the Vietnam conflict.
Did he go to Vietnam?
He did not deploy overseas, but he pretty much got married and then immediately was shipped off to boot camp and served for several years, actually, in the Texas National Guard.
My dad did the exact same thing. So he got married, went into the Navy, went into the Army as a helicopter pilot. He went in as a warrant officer because he had military training from Marion Military Institute during high school. He did 3 years of Marion, and he graduated early because he did summer school for 3 years in a row. Graduated early, got married, well, not immediately after high school. A few years later, got married, went into the Army as a warrant officer, went to Vietnam for a year and came back. Well, they discharged all of the helicopter pilots because they didn't need them anymore. So he enlisted in the National Guard, Florida National Guard. So he did that forever.
Yeah, I mean, that generation, deserves. It's nice to see.
He's a tough old guy too, man. Yeah. He's still pretty tough.
Yeah, it's nice to see a nation that is showing that appreciation. I know we just recently had honor flight where folks from the area, veterans from, I think it was the Korean conflict and Vietnam, got to go up and see all the monuments in D.C. that were created in their honor, and many of them had never had the chance to see it, and they take them up there and get to show them and tell them all about it. And then they came back here, and there was a massive welcoming at our airport thanking those veterans. So it's well overdue and much deserved.
So you worked for the Department of Defense, DHS, the Homeland Security, right? Or what?
I worked as a legislative liaison in the Department of Defense. It's the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Legislative Affairs.
How was your experience with that?
It's interesting. What preceded that was actually a year as a legislative fellow in Congresswoman Kay Granger's office. So she was a congresswoman out of Texas and was an appropriations lead. She was the chairwoman for defense appropriations at the time, but rose up to be the full chair of appropes following that. Super insightful. Got to basically, all a legislative fellowship means is it's an internship opportunity. So I got to serve a year as a staff member. This is through active duty, but I got plugged in on that. Got an education from Georgetown University called the Capitol Hill Fellowship. And so we got to see the legislative process, got to study our founding fathers, and kind of, I did sort of a side fellowship where with the National Review, and it's called the Burke to Buckley Fellowship, and got to study some conservative thought. So just have an immense appreciation for the genius of our founding fathers, and then to see how government is enacted and carried through, really get to see kind of a peek behind the curtain. And this was the 115th legislature, which was 2018. I would say at that time, there was still a lot of, across the aisle type coordination, although, it wasn't maybe in public, but you would see Republicans and Democrats, still having conversation with one another. They found ways to work together. This is, of course, like
years
McCain
ago.
passed away, in that term. So we got to be a part of the Navy funeral procession for that. I got to be an usher there, and be next to 4 or 5 living presidents. Really cool. Just so many just cool things to be on the bench of history for. But again, seeing government that was functioning relatively properly. Now, of course, there was partisanship then, and even then, of course, but getting to see that peak of it, and then to go over to the Pentagon and I would take principals, whether they were undersecretaries and so forth, generals, admirals, over to the Hill for testimonies with various committees and congressmen and women and senators. I got to do that. Matter of fact, one of the roles was to be able to take presidentially appointed officials that were up for Senate confirmation. We would walk them through that, and so I got to do that on 3 different occasions for those nominated officials and get them through their Senate confirmation. That was both under the Trump administration as well as the Biden administration. I split both, so I got to see kind of a peaceful turnover that occurs in the Department of War now.
Did you ever spend any time in the White House? Even for a tour?
just tours.
Yeah.
I didn't have the executive branch, and so most of that level was our senior official that would go over there. But it was really cool because obviously there's a significant level of coordination and communication, and the executive office has their own legislative liaison office, and we would work with them.
So, what's the most important thing that you learned from that experience?
Our founding fathers are brilliant.
Okay.
Our system is not perfect.
Answer, yeah.
Our system is not perfect, but it is the best form of governance that I think is possible.
Mm-hmm.
It takes work. It takes sacrifice. It takes people of character, to
people
to
of
execute
character
it.
with brains and vision to see the big picture,
Right.
and to see how to govern even the smallest municipalities, because it starts at the local level. It starts locally.
It does.
And then it goes to the state, and then it goes federally. So the local governance has to be in check.
Right. Yeah, and we, again, we need to be, as voters, we need to be choosy, and we need to make sure we're putting the right people and holding them accountable. There's certainly a lot of ambition in politics, but I think the voter is able to root through that and see what matters and what their character, what their fiber and their being is about. But I was very appreciative of it. It was 4 years of an incredible amount of insight. Blessed to have my family there and get to be a part of it as well.
Well, so how do you feel about the upcoming election? It's coming up good quick, and I know you're working hard.
I am, and I am thankful for the opportunity always to learn and get out there. I'm thankful for a job that allows me to. We have 5 pillars in our company to support our customers, support our suppliers, to support our employees, our investors, and then our communities. And when I approached my boss with this desire to serve, to have my boss's support on that has been really important. But what I'm hearing and encouraging voters is that we have to show up, especially as a conservative Republican. We've got to show up because the odds are not in our favor in a midterm year that the incumbent party wins, and I'm talking more at the congressional level, but there's a trickle-down effect to that too. So we can't rest on our laurels. In August is the primary in Florida, and so we need voters to show up. We need Republicans to show up and vote in August, and then we need to show up and vote in November as well.
Absolutely. So people need to know where their precincts are, and they need to know the election date.
That's it.
And I'm sure there's going to be early voting as well, and for the different precincts.
Right.
And the supervisor of elections will have that information out. It'll be online. I mean, everybody will see it, I'm sure. But people need to be aware because they need to know.
Our duty, again, our founding fathers created an incredible system, but it's our duty as citizens to be informed and to act. And what we can do is come informed on the voting process and go out and vote.
So when is election date in August?
August 18th.
August 18th. And early voting starts, I'm sure, the week prior. People will be able to go out and vote at their precincts.
Correct. Yeah.
And it might be different precincts in the general election. The early voting is sometimes different than the general election, so people need to be aware of that also. So
Yeah.
we'll get that information out.
Again, I think I want to make sure that I'm factually correct, before putting anything out like that. But I think that that's something that we'll be very mindful of ensuring that people are aware of all the different voting timelines and the registration timelines that go with it too. Because that's another thing I've learned
You have to
too,
be registered to
is they
vote.
have to be registered. And there's a lot of times that people move to the state or they move within the state and their voting records do not follow them unless they've updated them correctly.
Absolutely. So that's important. So I've learned a lot from you. You are very knowledgeable, and your career and your life experiences have brought you to this place. And I appreciate all of your information and your insight. Do you have any last follow-up? Do you have any closing statements that you want to make?
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I'd love to. With all your listeners out there, I would just say that I'm just blessed for this opportunity. Like I mentioned, I have a job that I love. I love working in the aviation industry. I love the fact that I learned so many things as a retired Naval Flight Officer over 24 years. And I want to put those skills that I've learned, I think, the leadership that I experienced, the great relationships that I've had, and the ability to build on those relationships. I want to take that, and I want to be able to represent Pensacola with pride, and take that to Tallahassee, and to serve with honor, to serve with a mission that's focused on making sure that House District 2 is better, that we protect the great things about it, we promote the great things about it, and we preserve all those great things, and just provide a future for it. Because at the end of the day, this is not anything that I need, it's everything I feel the Lord is leading me to do. And we want to create a place where everyone's children will come back to, right? That our kids can prosper and be in a safe community. I think that's important, and that's the vision I'd like to paint for House District 2.
I think that every parent can agree with that. Everybody wants a better future for their children, and everybody does everything they do. I know I do. Everything that I do, my life revolves around what is going to be a better life for my child.
Yeah.
Everything I do in the community, everything I do at home revolves around a better life for my child, a better future. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that's been our family mantra, is just make a better life for your kids than you were afforded.
Yeah.
And if we could all do that, just what a great world, right?
So, well, thank you for coming on the show. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to many more conversations with you in private and, wherever I see you in public. I appreciate it.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Rick. Thank you again.
Thank you. The Thornton Review is on the air to provide public service awareness and intellectual infrastructure to our community. This show was made possible by Larry Downs Jr. Plumbing, Ida Gates Godly Teas LLC, Alpha Fence Company, and our guest, Jon Fay, candidate for State House District 2. And we want to thank you for watching this episode of the Thornton Review. Bye-bye.